You've probably heard me say this before because I say it a lot, but it is true. And the last 24 hours have been especially, that's how you say that word, true. It was the darkest of times. It was the dumbest of times. We have had quite the mixed bag in the last day and a half. Jimmy Kimmel got his show back that was temporarily suspended by Disney and ABC. And I will argue that shows us that the power of the people is still stronger than the people in power. Donald Trump gave the most unhinged speech. I don't think you can call it screed in front of the UN General Council in the history of the world, where he told all of the countries there that they were all going to hell. He mused about himself in the third person related to the marble at the UN. He fumed about an escalator and a teleprompter that didn't work. The deep state resistance defiant escalator and teleprompter, which, by the way, malfunctioned because of his own people, because somebody tripped up something on the escalator, and the teleprompter is always controlled by the president's team. But it doesn't matter, because the lie that it was some deep state bad actor has been written into history now, and they're going to make them pay. As all of that was unfolding, we had the Tylenol press conference that Unhinged doesn't even do justice, in which they linked Tylenol to autism, because pregnant women taking Tylenol make their children autistic, which is more blaming women, and also, by the way, bullshit. And then now, just moments before I recorded with Miles, we had the news break that Donald Trump's U.S. attorney is going to be indicting James Comey. The rumor is it's going to be for perjury. Who the fuck knows? It doesn't really matter. And we are going to talk about that in this episode. But in the meantime, welcome back to Sane-ish, the podcast where sanity is always relative, especially in 2025. Today's guest is Miles Taylor, former DHS chief of staff, best-selling author and whistleblower, who's seen the MAGA machine from the inside out. You probably know him as the guy with enough backbone to pen an anonymous essay in the New York Times blowing the whistle on presidential misconduct. He later published the #1 national bestseller, A Warning, and revealed himself to be the author. His latest book, Blowback, should be required reading. Today, in the light of the news that James Comey is about to be indicted, he's here in full daylight. No code names, just hard truths. We're peeling back the curtain on revenge politics, weaponized executive power, and what it's really like when the president personally marks you as treasonous. Before we get to Miles, let's talk about two of the supporters of today's podcast. You know, I've shared with you before how much I love to care for my plants and trees. Well, you may not realize it, but fall is actually planting season. That's right. There are many plants and trees that actually do better when planted this time of year. But you have to know where to start. That's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. It doesn't matter if you live in year-round sunshine or a colder, cloudier climate. Their plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. You don't have to drive all over to hopefully find what you want. Just go to fastgrowingtrees.com, order online, and your plants are delivered directly to your door. I just got my plants, friends. And I am so excited. 2 of them are in the ground because I got 1 indoor plant. But I am so excited. I got 2 like conifers, 2 like evergreens. I got one of the arborvitae. I think that's how you say that. And like some kind of like Norwegian wood. Isn't it good? Norwegian wood? I don't know. I can't remember. I just picked the pretty ones, and I got a fiddle leaf fern for my office. And I'm totally geeked out. I took pictures of them like a proud parent. Anyway, this fall, they have the best deals for you and for your yard. Up to half off on select plants and other deals. And Sane-ish listeners get 15% off their first purchase when visiting fastgrowingtrees.com/Sane-ish and using the code Sane-ish at checkout. So that's 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/Sane-ish. That's SANEISH using the code Sane-ish at checkout. Now's the perfect time to plant. Use Sane-ish SANEISH to save today. The offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link in the show notes and help support the show. Okay, friends, let's talk about skincare. If you know me at all, you know that skincare has always been a top priority for me. And that's why I'm so happy to welcome OneSkin to the Sane-ish podcast as one of our partners. I've been using their OS01 eye topical and the OS01 face topical supplements, which are not only proven to target the root causes of aging, they're also meant to target dehydration and skin tone. And let's be real here, at 51, the struggle is real when it comes to both of those things. So I'll take any leg up I could possibly get. OneSkin is widely known for their skin products because of their science-first approach, which makes sure they all deliver hydration, barrier support, and powerful longevity benefits in one single step. Who has the time for 72 steps? I don't. I don't think you do either, especially not during these crazy times. Plus, they have hyaluronic acid, which helps epidermal regeneration, which basically is fancy words for you look better, you look younger, you look more youthful. OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company targeting cellular aging to keep your skin and scalp looking and acting younger for longer. For a limited time, you can try OneSkin. I am enjoying the products that I have, believe me, with a 15% off code. That's the code JOJO, J-O-J-O, at oneskin.co. That's 15% off at oneskin.co with code JOJO. After your purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please support our show and tell them we sent you. Try OneSkin today. Your future self will thank you. Now, get ready for a masterclass in speaking truth to power, dodging political landmines, and why in these times sane-ish feels aspirational.
The news is, I think it's tough to overstate how significant it is. I mean, really.
Yeah.
He issues a post on Saturday demanding the expedited indictment of James Comey, and he gets it within a week. Or at least it appears he's going to get it this week. As people have already said, that's bigger than Watergate. It's much bigger than Watergate. It's happening in real time. Now, it gives Comey a much better defense in court, but, rule of law is dead, man. That's time of death right there.
Yeah. Just for some context, welcome to Sane-ish, Miles Taylor. As you were just talking, this just broke. Well, I guess it's been percolating, but you tweeted MSNBC ex-FBI director James Comey expected to be charged with a crime. We don't know yet what that is, but I'm hearing it as perjury by the Trump administration per reporting from Dee Lanian, MSNBC, and Carol, how do you say her last name?
Leonnig.
Leonnig. Yeah. This is a huge deal. Trump demanded DOJ charge Comey with something to get revenge. Now they are. The rule of law is dead. And there are rumors that it's not just Comey, that Schiff is imminent, and Letitia James is imminent. And the U.S. attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia just resigned under pressure. I think a Trump appointee, right? Because they would not find what was not there as it pertained to Letitia James, possibly, and as we probably can assume here, Comey as well. Miles Taylor, you were one of the first people, if not the first person, that Donald Trump decided he was going to announce a criminal investigation into at the beginning of this shit show. So this is very personal, I'm sure. And how are you feeling right now?
Well, it was a badge of honor when it happened, but
perhaps.
But yeah, but not all badges of honor come with a big check and a happy ceremony, and some badges of honor are awarded posthumously. Look, the Comey news to me should remove any doubt that anyone has about Trump being serious about using this presidency for revenge. I will say, I have grown, like many people, sick and tired of hearing my former colleagues in the Republican Party say that Donald Trump is joking or make excuses to try to mitigate the perception that this is a revenge administration. And if they needed more proof, they got it this morning when all of those clowns who trotted out there and said Donald Trump was not engaging in retribution and censorship of ABC and Disney were proven wrong, as always, when Trump himself came out and said, no, that's what I was trying to do, and I'm going to go get him. But the Comey news, I think, is even more significant than that, vastly more significant, because of the brazenness of it and because of the total lack of precedent for something like this in the American constitutional republic. We have never had an American president vocally and publicly ordering certain adversaries to be prosecuted because of their criticisms of him, because of his desire for revenge, and seeing the government then follow suit. This is definitionally the type of thing that exceeds the boundaries of the rule of law. It's happening right now. And while the indictment hasn't happened yet, I do think that Ken and Carol, who are spectacular at MSNBC, I'm sure their reporting is spot on. They cited 3 different sources with this reporting. And as you note, Joe, if they go further and they charge Letitia James and if they charge Adam Schiff, it will show that we have become a lawless country. And that's why I keep using the phrase that I'm calling death, time of death, on the rule of law. And I think it was Saturday, September 20th at 6:44 p.m. when Donald Trump put out that post, basically fired the guy who was the prosecutor in Virginia, says we're putting someone else in, demands the attorney general charge these people. That's when the directive really went out. That's when the rule of law died in this country.
Yeah, and I'm going to just pull that up. I think he said we have to act fast one way or the other. Oh, sorry, that was what he said. Trying to find the post. But yeah, I mean, and some people were speculating as to whether or not that was intended to be a public post or if it was intended to be a text, because it was a little confusing, but it doesn't matter, right? I mean, it was out there. I think that they may or may not have deleted it. I don't even know. But the guardrails are gone in all of this. You know what I mean? And the Republican Party has castrated themselves completely at this point where there's no more line. They're not even moving a line anymore. They're just watching this brazen authoritarian overreach, puts it mildly, and just saying, I didn't see the tweet, or you don't take him seriously, or I'm sure that was meant in jest, or you're being hyperbolic, or right. I mean, it is a 5-alarm fire, to say the very least, right now.
Yeah, and it's just the beginning.
Yeah,
there isn't anything, Joe, that I see at all to rein him in on going and charging any of his enemies with crimes and investigating them. And I didn't mean to dodge your question earlier about the personal aspects of it. I expect there's a very high likelihood of our home getting raided as they continue their investigation into me. This room, this little tiny cupboard under the stairs, Miles modified sound studio, will probably be searched and the little sound panels ripped off as they look for anything that they could use to charge me with as punishment for speaking out against the president of the United States. People don't need to have sympathy for me. I say that all the time, but they need to know that stark reality, because if it can happen here to me and in this little room, it can happen to you and in your home and to the leaders of the organizations you're a part of, whether it's businesses or government organizations. There are no limitations. The only limitation at this point is the president's willingness to sign his signature on a document demanding one of those investigations like he did to me, or the time it might take to craft a Truth Social post like he did on Saturday and send it out. That's it. That's the limitation. And he won't care about staffing resources. He will throw whatever bodies he needs to at the Justice Department to make sure that they can prosecute as many of his critics as he wants to. I mean, after the Kimmel thing was sorted, he just went back to threatening ABC and said, you guys paid me, I got paid $16 million for a previous settlement. I'm going to make this one more. He won't stop. And again, going back to, I've heard from a couple of folks today, they said, well, there's, if it's any cause for optimism, there's at least a bureaucratic limitation. They can't do this to everyone. No, I mean, look what they're doing on the immigration front. They ran out of immigration judges, and they're taking JAGs, the judge advocate generals, from the military and bringing them over as immigration judges. And in fact, hardly anyone's talked about that in the news. There are military lawyers coming over to become immigration judges so that he can ramp up his campaign. He will do whatever it takes to throw the bodies needed to at the problem to go persecute his enemies. This isn't America anymore. This is not the United States. And Joe, the reason I'm continuing to talk about this, despite not wanting to, is that they have taken everything from me and my family. They've taken my jobs repeatedly. They've taken our personal security. They've taken our savings. We're not going to let them take our country. And that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to take 249 years of American history and respect for the rule of law and abrogate it.
So what does that look like when you say, I mean, that what we do, what you do is very, very brave in the face of what you are having to contend with. But when people hear us talking about this and we say things like that, the next question is, okay, what now? Or how? What can we do? How can we stop them? Because every escalation feels like one more step. I don't even think it's like towards the cliff. It's over the side of the cliff. So what would you say to that?
Yeah. Well, look, I think if there was anything good that came out of the Jimmy Kimmel episode, is that I think it gave people a playbook for what to do. Is they saw that the protest within the company, outside of the company, and from everyday Americans was real. It had an impact. So although they weren't able to dissuade Trump, it's not like the pushback talked Trump out of persecuting ABC, as we saw this morning, but they were able to blunt the impact of that censorship and help Disney grow a spine. So whether it was individual people who canceled their Disney Plus subscriptions, to people posting about it on social media, to calling their members of Congress, it worked. It worked. And people, it often feels hopeless in a situation like this when folks say, I'm just one person. What can I do? You contributed to that. You did that. Miles didn't do that. Joe didn't do that. The people out there, consumers did that. Voters did that. And we are going to have to develop tighter pattern recognition for that sort of behavior if we want to rein in Donald Trump's misconduct, because these targets are going to be different. The institutions are going to be different, but the end result is going to be the same. Is the censorship war will be prosecuted by the federal government against all aspects of American society. And we have to play that whack-a-mole game wherever it pops up. So Comey, for instance, let me zoom in on Comey.
Yeah.
People will say, well, what can we do in response to the news about Jim Comey? I suspect there will be a number of things, but the first and most important thing is showing solidarity, because it's going to become tempting for everyone from the news media to individual commentators to wait for these charges and to parse through the charges and say, well, but was he guilty of something? Let me be abundantly clear. If Jim Comey had killed someone and buried them in Rock Creek Park in Washington, D.C., that crime would not have been found and prosecuted were it not for its antecedent, which is Donald Trump saying, I want to go after that man and find anything he did wrong and get revenge against him. Now, Comey didn't kill someone and put them in Rock Creek Park, but if you've ever taken a constitutional law class, you learn in Con Law 101 that even if a bad crime is found out about someone, if it started with the commission of a crime to look into them, can't be prosecuted. So if you arrest a drug dealer because he looks like a drug dealer, but you don't have probable cause, but you pull him over anyway because you're like, that guy looked like a drug dealer and he's got 1,000 pounds of drugs in the trunk, you cannot prosecute the case. It will get thrown out because you didn't have cause to do that search. We need to take the same approach to Comey. Now, I think they're going to be bringing bogus charges against him. I don't think there's much to support this idea of him committing perjury before Congress. But regardless, that is not the point. The much bigger point here is that the system is being abused to find infractions that people have committed. And I say this all the time, Joe, I am sure if someone looked at you long enough, me long enough, Mr. Rogers long enough, you'll find a mistake on their taxes. You'll get video of them jaywalking. You'll find an infraction, right? That's not the point. And a lot of people have used that slogan the past couple of months, the old Soviet saying, you show me the man, I'll show you the crime, because anyone can be charged with a crime if you look at them long enough.
Right.
But do you have the predicate? Is that predicate lawful? In this case with Comey, it is so apparently evident that this is vindictive prosecution. Now, his lawyers will hope that he gets thrown out. But back to the point, what people can do is convey that message. It doesn't matter what Jim Comey is charged with. What matters is that he is being charged with anything at the demand of a vindictive president. That's what people can do at the start of this. And I suspect there'll be other ways to help out Comey in the process.
Yeah. And by the way, a lot of my friends in this space have already sort of put out their responses, which are, look, hopefully he goes back and revisits that, announcement he made whenever about Hillary's emails, blah, blah, blah. Stop that. First of all, stop that. Okay. Like, let's park that in the past. You're not going to rewrite it. You're not going to change it. You don't have to like James Comey. Like, you didn't have to like Jimmy Kimmel. And to your point about Kimmel and about what that shows us and sort of what it paints a path towards. One of the things about Kimmel that was unique was that it pierced this bubble of people being like, oh, that happens to them. And like you said, this isn't stuff. If it's your little room, it'll be somebody else's little room tomorrow. And the Kimmel stuff, people, even Ted Cruz and fucking Tucker Carlson could say, oh, you know what? This is a slippery slope. This is bad. And a lot of people across the political spectrum, from Joe Rogan to Theo Von, et cetera, were like, whoa. Like we're Candace Owens. If we're about free speech, this is not about free speech. And if they're going to do this to him, who's to say that they can't do this to us, or that another party can't come in and do this to us? And people saw themselves and their rights on the line with Kimmel. And I think that was one of the ways, in addition, obviously, to if free market's doing what they do and pressuring Disney to rescind their suspension. I think that's the thing here too, Miles. I think that it's incumbent upon us to make the case that when they're suspending your rights to due process and they're cooking up charges and they're looking at you long enough to find something, that doesn't stop with your political enemies. It doesn't stop with the people you don't like. They don't care. And so I think that you're right about driving that message that this is not actually that partisan. And I'm not going to cry harder because it's James Comey, because it could be Joe Rogan if he slips up and says the wrong thing in 2 months. And I think that there is some saliency there in sort of getting that message to pierce this partisan bubble where people are like, wait, hold on. No, this is not good.
Joe could not have put it better. It doesn't matter what your feelings are for the person. This is all about American values. And John Bolton was a great early test of that and how people were going to respond. Because a lot of folks, especially on the left, didn't like John Bolton, spent years opposed to his worldview.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that the man's house should be raided because the president doesn't like his criticisms. And I go back to the, what's in the nature of the investigative order? I don't care what led them to get a magistrate judge's approval in Bolton's case. I really don't. I don't care what led them to go in there, because it would not have happened were it not for Trump saying, go focus on that man and find something. That's what we have to hone in on.
We've got more with Miles in just a minute. But first, let's talk about how you own your online security. Okay, everybody wants to feel more secure, right? Well, take a minute and Google yourself and see what comes up. I did that a while back, and damn, it was scary what people can find out about you online. That's why I've partnered with Incogni to take control of my online privacy by removing my data from all those shady people search sites, spam centers, broker databases, etc. Incogni is basically a digital hitman for your data. It hunts down all those shady sites I'm talking about, and poof, your personal info disappears. And you don't have to email anyone, fill out any forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire data removal process for you. Plus, Incogni doesn't just do that and walk away. They will continue to monitor things. So if your data ever gets put back onto these shady databases, they request removals until the info is removed, keeping your data yours forever. Best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com/JoJo and using the code JoJo. That's incogni.com/JoJo. Use the code JoJo at checkout. That's JoJo. Live free from dangerous spam by using Incogni. That's incogni.com/JoJo for 60% off their annual plans. Now let's get back to Miles Taylor.
But the analogy that I keep using for folks is it's like if you were sitting at a bar and the bartender poisoned one of the patrons. And the bartender said, well, he didn't pay his bar tab. And then everyone in the room was like, well, yeah, let's find out. I mean, did he pay his bar tab? No! The guy was just killed. He was killed by the bartender. That's the crime. And that's what we need to focus our attention on. We are going to see this story again and again, and I think we will get better at honing in on that first part, that original sin, if you will, because this will, as you know, potentially happen with Schiff and Letitia James and others, and it will become very real. But there is, if I can intimate that there's a little bit of solace here, a little tiny bit, in that the bigger the boat gets, the harder it is for them to stop us. The more people Trump goes after, the larger the resistance itself gets. And you were so right, Joe, in pointing out that happened with Kimmel, because everyday Americans who wanted to turn the other way suddenly realized, even if it was in a small way, this was directly affecting their lives. The people that they laugh at are being pulled off the air. That boat is getting bigger. And you know, the other day, I'll say, I'm sure he wouldn't mind me saying this, I bumped into Adam Schiff on Capitol Hill. He was sitting outside at a restaurant. I was leaving an event, and I walked by him. I just, I said, hey, Senator, how are you? We shook hands, and, he asked the same. And we didn't talk for very long, but there was a knowingness to it, a knowingness in that both of us knew we were marked men in the eyes of the president. And I don't know what he's going to be charged with. I don't know what I'm going to be charged with. I just know that there's a man in the Oval Office that wants it to happen. And that fact alone is deeply, deeply wrong.
It is, and that hit me really hard to hear you articulate that in that way, because I can't even imagine, and I don't want to imagine, and I'm not saying it's impossible that it will someday be my fate too, but I cannot imagine having the weight of the most, impactful political position, arguably, in the entire world, breathing down your neck. It makes me feel sick to my stomach, anxious, angry, sad, frustrated, upset, worried, all of those things all at the same time. And to know that you are, brothers in arms, in that you're both being targeted by him for the crime of telling the truth and holding truth to power and holding him accountable. It's upside down. It's inside out. It's back to the original sin with Donald Trump, which was when my then 7-year-old son came out of his room the morning of the election and saw me crying on the floor after I'd put them to bed and said, you're going to wake up tomorrow morning and the good guy's going to have won, like in the movies, right will prevail. And I couldn't answer his question when he asked me how that could happen, how the bad guy could win. It hits me really hard to hear what's happened to people like you, what he's trying to do to people like you, to people like Comey, to people like Tish James, to people like Adam Schiff, because it's that same original sin of being upside down. the bad guy winning the day. Like, this flies in the face of every message as parents that we try to, infuse into our children, to do the right thing, because the right thing is worth doing. And ultimately the right thing is what gets rewarded. But that is not what we have seen in his first shit show. We had that minute of respite in the 4 years of Joe Biden, which was glorious.
A minute. Yeah, just
right?
a minute.
Right.
Yeah.
And to think that we're not just right back here. It's so much worse because, as you wrote about years ago, one of the reasons I guess he's targeting you is when those guardrails are gone, and they will be gone. You and I spoke during Joe Biden's term about that very thing. And here we are. That was prophecy. It wasn't prophecy because you're a soothsayer. It was prophecy because you have 2 eyes and 2 ears and you're very intelligent, but you also saw how the sausage gets made. And here we are. And it feels so much more bleak to know that the people like you that existed, I fucking can't stand Bolton, but the people like Bolton who existed in the world to check his worst impulses, to constrain and restrain him from doing the things he's emboldened to do now. It feels so fucking bleak, but it's that, like, again, it's that core. Hearing you say that you see Adam Schiff and you know that the both of you are marked men by this vengeful, depraved, insane person who just wants to hurt you. He wanted to hurt Kimmel. He wanted to hurt anybody he could hurt because it makes him feel something of worth or value or better. I don't know. It just breaks my heart. It fucking pisses me off and it breaks my heart.
Well, and it's not just the people that are targeted. It's it's all the collateral damage, and there's layers to that. I mean, I have a 1-year-old child downstairs. She is my life. They want to take me away from her. They want to take me away from my wife. They want to see me in handcuffs. There's collateral damage to this for friends, for family members, but also for ordinary Americans. If James Comey, if John Bolton, Miles Taylor, whoever, like him or not like him, if they get charged, if they get arrested arbitrarily, those are your rights too that are evaporating before your eyes. As you noted, Joe, your due process rights, your free speech rights, when it happens to one of us, it is happening to you. And that's what's so chilling about it, or what should be for most Americans. I will say that the only thing that's given me motivation, I wrote about this the other day. There's one word that almost became, and I wasn't even going to share this with people publicly, but like every day you face a different struggle when you're in this, from, your wife crying and saying, hey, what if the worst happens and they take you away from us, to, your job and your company blowing up, which happened to us, to you get a death threat from a Looney Tune in Florida who you don't know if they're still down there or if they're in the car on the way. These things happen every day. And the one word that helped me start confronting these kind of dark moments in the wake of getting added to his blacklist was the word defiance. And this sounds almost, Joe, like I'm saying something, on the therapist's couch. But, Hannah and I, my wife, found us, the hits just kept coming, week after week once he did this. And we didn't want to get sucked into navel-gazing self-pity and despair, because that's really, really destructive. You can't get things done when you get to that standpoint. And we found that reframing things around this word defiance was really helpful. And perhaps unsurprisingly, that became our watchword for how to approach this situation. And it was, okay, we're not just going to survive this period of Donald Trump's return. We are going to defy it actively in every way. That means not shutting up. It means not apologizing for telling the truth. It means not normalizing this and letting it become something that people accept. And it also means not limiting it just to speaking out, but turning the persecution into an organizing principle, getting other people into the boat to help, because that's how we make the intimidation unsuccessful. That's how we neuter the intimidation and make it ineffective. And so, look, that's what we're doing. That's all we know how to do, what to do at this point, is not keep our heads down, but to defy this man until he is gone.
Amen, and thank you. And it again, it hurts my heart to hear, what you have had to endure. I'm very sorry. I don't think that word is even remotely adequate in response to that. But I think one of the reasons that I think you are so remarkably brave is because that what they want is for people like you to be a lesson, that you're a chilling factor, that you are the example, that Comey is the example, that Schiff is the example, that ABC was the example, these law firms and in colleges and universities bending the knee and obeying in advance, that they were the example that they want everyone else to not defy, they to not stand up and be brave and meet this moment, to shrink away, to go quietly, to take it. But that word defiant. And by the way, I love my therapist. So if you want to have a therapy session, I'm down with that. But
We
I
need to
love,
do a live from in
right.
there.
Oh my God. Oh my God. My therapist literally, and no joke, literally saved my life, because I was, that's another podcast, but we talk about, words, and I surround myself with positive affirmations and shit. And it's just one of these things, but wrapping yourself around that word defiant, I love that, because too often, and I'm not shaming anybody for using this word, but too often we take this posture of resistance, right? And resistance is a good word, and it's a powerful word. But to me, it's not offensive. It's not on the offense, right? To me, resistance is I will stand up against, I will bear the weight of this thing, and I will resist against it. But to be defiant is to take your power and push it out, and then make them have to resist or comply, make them have to adjust to what you're doing. And defiance is, I have not used that word as enough in my mind and my heart and my soul. And what you've done now for me is help me frame this, because I often say, I was just on with Lev Parnas, by the way, on a live. He said hello, and we were talking about how
Love
the
Lev.
Democrats need to go on offense more, no more of these fucking strongly worded letters and memos, and Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries wanting to meet with Donald Trump to negotiate. Stop. That is not defiance, right? Like, that's when you can imbue that into the populace, into the people. You have this moment, to your point about hope, and this is a good place to close, and your last final thoughts, because I think we have an opportunity, and the fucked up word to use, where we can galvanize around these things in the way that we galvanized around a late night comedy show host being silenced. We should and can, and we will galvanize if we can sort of lean into that defiance that you're modeling, that you're talking about.
I appreciate you saying that, Joe. I think, really genuinely, the word I found was so powerful. It reframed really, really hard days. Like it changed my whole demeanor about a bad thing that happened. When it happened, I had a person who was extremely close to me, a very close friend, bail in the wake of Trump's blacklisting.
I'm sorry.
And that took took weeks to get past that. And then it was like the word defiance came into my head, and it was like, yeah, all right, I'll get past this. It's a powerful reframing, but I'll close by saying this. I think if you put in place, whether it's for the country or yourself as an individual, a plan of defiance for this moment, one of the most important aspects of that entire thing is to shake off the fear. And that's the really, really hard part. And I forget which fiction author it was that called, fear the little death that leads to ultimate death, something along those lines. But the fear is the oxygen that fuels autocracy. And your best act of defiance will be showing, even if you feel inside like you're a little afraid. That's okay. You can admit that. But not letting them see the fear is really important, because that makes other people feel strong enough to step forward. And it can be things as small as liking a post and resharing something. I hear stories every day of people traveling into and out of this country who have sanitized their social media profiles because they are worried the Trump regime will see something that they don't like and deport them. Okay, so it is now an act of bravery to leave a post up, to like something that you're worried about. Show that you are unafraid. That is going to be the key to defiance for the next 3+ years. And Joe, I just want to say I'm immensely grateful for you. You have been so brave for so many years, and people like you have provided air cover for folks to come forward and do the right thing. So I'm truly grateful.
Well, thank you for that as a compliment, and thank you for modeling again how people can meet this moment in extraordinary ways, and for helping people feel seen. Because that's the thing I talk about all the time, is like, to that point about fear, when they see you out there facing what you're facing and still speaking out, speaking truth, it does bolster their sense of possibility and hope, and that existential dread sort of can dissipate for at least a moment. And so I appreciate you very, very much, and hugs and love to your family. I hope that we can have another conversation in brighter, happier times, on the other side of all of this. But if not, we should talk anyway in the midst of all of it.
We will have a resistance reunion at some point in the future, a defiance reunion, if you will. Yes. And until then, I would just say, folks, take care of yourselves and take care of each other.
Amen to that. Thank you so much, Miles. It was wonderful having this conversation. Again, wish they were under better circumstances, but thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Joe.
Big thanks to Miles Taylor for joining us today. If you liked this episode, please make some noise, subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Believe it or not, those likes and comments really help us reach new eyes and ears, and it takes a village, people. Until next time, stay alert, stay skeptical, and above all, stay just sane-ish enough to keep fighting for what's right, even when the crazy feels overwhelming.